Okay. Are we waiting for something to happen?
Oh, yeah. Should I just go?
I mean, I'm happy to just chill out for the first minute.
Do you know what? I genuinely forgot it was me.
And lovely Patreon viewers, that's why you pay the big bucks,
Yeah.
so you can see this. Yep. No one else gets this. Lucky you.
Don't tell anyone either. Right, great. Settled. Here we go. Hello and welcome back to the Simple Politics podcast. Don't adjust your audio devices. This is the Real SP podcast. It's not Kobe. Kobe's been our brilliant guest host for the past few weeks, but he's probably got better things to do, bigger fish to fry. So you're left with me. It's Diane and obviously Tatton. Hello.
I've got nothing better to do. I've got no fish to fry. In fact, I have got some fish in for the kids tonight, but that will be oven baked.
Yes.
And not particularly big.
Yes, with a crispy coating.
Just some breadcrumbs is what it's in.
Yeah.
Sustainably sourced cod. I'm just doing this chat because normally, like, the host and Diane do these meaningless, terrible chats that I hate so much. But now it's just Diane and me. So I've got to play ball.
You do. You've got to talk about all sorts of domestic issues and Man. So buckle up for that over the next few weeks.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know how any listeners get beyond this section. I'd have turned off already.
You can't say that, really, can you? I mean,
is that not? I mean, a lovely listener. You're amazing. You're wonderful. You sit through this nonsense at the beginning. We've got some really good bits to this podcast. I love this podcast, just not the first 3 or 4 minutes.
Well, we should get on with it soon then.
We should, but before we do, I need to remind you that we have a Patreon, and times are tough. Do you know what? This podcast was recommended in the Radio Times. So if you're a new listener from the Radio Times, welcome.
Yeah.
But it was so on brand because at the end of the recommendation, it didn't say, "Oh, they're brilliant." It said, "They really need your help."
Yeah, like
it's like.
Yeah. It's like a pity listen, right? Yeah.
Poor them. So that's us. But the truth is, they're right. We do need your help because we are just trying to make it work. The whole of SP, we just try and make it work. It's difficult. We've got no backing. We've got no funders except for you. And if you want this to continue, I think we're definitely doing it until the summer, but who knows after the summer. Like if you like this podcast, if you want it to continue, please consider backing us on Patreon from like £3 a month. It adds up. It really does. It's worth it. Please do it. You can spend much more if you want, but if you can, please do back us. And if you can't, tell other people and, spread the word and do all that stuff. But Patreon really matters. And part of the Patreon money is going to go to our amazingly talented new producer, Lottie. And she's very expensive. She eats a lot of jelly beans. And we've got to keep her in jelly beans. And she's hanging out. She's currently muted herself, which isn't brilliant for a podcast, but she is currently on mute, and she will be joining us later on to ask some questions. But she's wonderful, and so welcome to the team, Lottie.
Brilliant. So basically, stick around for that bit because it won't be just me and Tatton. So don't go anywhere. It's going to be worth it. Well, let's go to top post of the week because we're still doing all the old bangers. So let's go. Top posts of the week. So,
all right. I'm going in. In at 3, we've got a slightly tricky post. Former Labour MP Mike Amesbury, you may have seen, has been sentenced to actual prison, which is incredibly rare for an MP, because normally when MPs do the wrong thing, they just get, told off or whatever. But he's actually, right now, as we're recording, he is locked up in prison. And the reason is because he punched somebody to the ground. And when the person was on the ground, he kept punching them. So that's suboptimal, right? And it's all on CCTV. Yeah. You can watch it. If you hit YouTube, it's there for you. If you're on YouTube, you should probably check out this Simple Politics YouTube page. But then you can go and watch Mike Amesbury just completely disgrace himself. Anyway, he's in prison. And being in prison, he still gets paid his salary, which is like 91 grand a year. And there was a few people who are cross about that. But people who are cross don't understand what it is to be an MP. There's a lot of not understanding that we're going to talk about this podcast. Your boss is the electorate. Nobody employs you. You have been elected to your job. The Prime Minister can't fire you as an MP. The Speaker can't fire you as an MP. Nobody can fire you as an MP. They can stop you being a Labour MP, which they have done to Mike Amesbury. He's not an MP anymore, a Labour MP, but they cannot stop you being an MP. You have been put there by the people. Even when he's in prison, he's been elected by the people. Now, there is a newish thing called a recall petition, and that can be put in place, and the people can vote, and if 10% of all the electorate sign it, then he gets done. And there's a by-election. The only time they've always gone through, except for once for like Ian Paisley Jr. in Northern Ireland, because his constituents love him so much that even when he's being caught doing a total wrong, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, it doesn't matter." Did
it happen? There was a recent one with the lady who broke the COVID rules, wasn't there? The Scottish one. I think that went to a recall. Maybe I could be wrong.
So to go to a recall, you have to be suspended from the House of Commons for more than a week, or maybe 10 days. I'm not sure. So that's the rule. Yeah. But Amesbury is appealing. He pleaded guilty, but he's appealing his sentence. And we can't have a recall petition apparently till after the appeal process. So justice has to be done, right? So after the appeal process, then he can have a recall, and then he can stop getting paid.
Yeah.
But until that time. Unless he resigns, I suppose.
That's the thing. Why isn't he not just resigning?
Because he's a scumbag. He's a scumbag on £91,000 a year. He punches people when they're down. He is the worst of the worst. And you can tell that because he hasn't resigned. Like, he's more than welcome to resign, apologise, and then run in that by-election and say to the people, I still want to be your MP. I made this mistake. But that's not what he's doing. No. He's appealing. He's not resigning. He's trying to fight it. Like,
yeah. And it's not a good look, though, because, well, this is the stuff, we try and talk about all the time, right? We try and say, like, politicians in general, MPs in general, are decent people doing decent things, and this when you get an outlier like this, it just makes it incredibly difficult to.
But there are 650
exactly, yeah.
Right. If you take a group of 650 people, some of them are going to be scumbags. That's human. That's human nature. And also, there's something about like what makes you be in it. Like, there's a performance element, and there's all kinds of things that make it possibly more likely that some of the people who get up there to be an MP are these people. And you just get these scandals time and time again. And what hurts me most is that scandals are reported so widely, and the good work of, let's say, select committees is reported so littly that people who aren't particularly paying attention, I think that's most people, see scandal after scandal after scandal, and they don't see the good work, and it puts people off and it's miserable. Okay,
right, moving on. Let's go to post number 2 of the week, okay? And this time we're talking, it's a big one. it's a big topic. It's defence spending, and this has been, wow, the thing of the week, really, hasn't it? It came
number two
thing of the week, but really everywhere else it's been number one. That's why we're different. But Keir Starmer himself actually delivered this message, okay, because it needed to come from him. This is policy. This is government. This is big. This is a big deal for the country. There has been so much recently about how, given the global instability, given challenges that we're facing, given increased cybercrime, given the developing situation with Russia and Ukraine, how we need to spend more on defence. And that's not just the government saying that. The Lib Dems backed that. They were calling for massive increases in defence. The Conservatives wanted increases in defence. Reform did. Lots and lots of people wanted an increase in defence spending. So Keir Starmer stood up and said, and, it's not immediate, but he said, we're going to get to this target of spending 2.5% of GDP. That won't mean a lot to most people, but it basically is we're going to spend loads more on defence by 2027.
Possibly 6 billion.
Possibly
6 billion, possibly 13 billion, depending on who you ask in the government at what time they're going to tell you.
Yeah, exactly. But what was really crucial and what made this a bigger story is he was clear and transparent about where that was going to be funded or how that was going to be funded. And it was by cutting the international aid or development budget. Okay. So that made this an even bigger story because we could see where the money was coming from. And that, okay, you've got on one side of things, you've got people like we put up a quote from Jeremy Corbyn that went huge yesterday because he's one of the people that's opposed to this. And the rationale on that side would be that this development, this aid budget actually helps stability in many countries. So the reason why there aren't more wars and more things going on is because we invest and help some countries be more stable. Now,
and small boats.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the opposing side, you've got everybody saying, well, this is unprecedented, almost like a wartime situation. We're in unprecedented times. This is what we need to do. And there's a lot of debate on the page as well about how investment is a deterrent. Investment in military is also a deterrent. So they're the two sides of the argument we keep hearing this week. And it's a real split on the page. It's a real split.
It's really interesting split on the page, isn't it? When someone gets in trouble for saying something on social media, everyone calls 1984. Even though it's not 1984, because, you read that book and there's nothing about that kind of thing. What there is in 1984 is the Ministry of Peace, which is their it's like their war department. And Keir Starmer, on his feet in the chamber, said he wanted peace through strength. And it just reminded me of the Ministry of Peace, like peace through strength. It's difficult, and it's difficult because the last time we actually got to 2.5% on defence, the last time we did that, Tony Blair.
Really?
Tony Blair, when during the war in Iraq, because obviously when you're invading people, you spend more on it. Labour prime ministers. Labour prime ministers and defence, and it's counterintuitive.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Tony Blair came in after years of conservatism, smashed in defence spending. Keir Starmer's come in after years of conservatism, smashed in defence spending. So it's counterintuitive, but the evidence is clearly there.
The other thing is, though, we can't ignore that globally there's pressure to do this, right? So there's pressure on Europe to spend more on defence, with America potentially withdrawing some of the money from NATO, etc. So
But how is America raising money at the moment? It's cutting aid.
Yeah.
The world's richest man is cutting aid to the world's poorest people, right? And then a few days later, David Lammy said it was the wrong thing to do. Our foreign secretary said that was the wrong thing to do. And a few days later, Keir Starmer's standing up and cutting aid. Like, there is so much that we echo what's going on in the White House. And I think we're going to talk about this later. But all the questions in the press conference, he spoke in the Commons and then did a press conference later. And there were questions from journalists. And they all said, the war in Ukraine's been going on for 3 years. Nothing's changed there. The only thing that has changed is someone different in the White House. So that's why we're doing this. Because 2.5% was in the manifesto.
Yes, but not as early.
There was no date attached, I don't think. So that means within the Parliament, which is within 5 years, so by 2029. And he's meant 2027. Cutting financial aid was not in the manifesto.
No, it wasn't. No. In fact, the view was that we would eventually increase again, get up to 0.7 eventually.
Yeah, because it was 0.7 in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then it was only a few years ago it got downgraded to 0.5. Andrew Mitchell is Conservative, who's in charge of these things. He's a good man, Andrew Mitchell. He was like not very pleased with it. But yeah, the Conservatives were like, times are really tough. We've got to cut it to 0.5. And we're now cutting it again to 0.3. So that's a huge, over 50% cut of what it was just a few years ago.
Yeah. We could talk loads more about this one, but I feel we got to move on again.
Yes, from one bleak moment to another bleak moment. Welcome to the top post of the week, lovely people. Here we go. In at one. Children are miserable.
Oh.
Basically, children aren't playing. You know, playing out is the phrase, but they're not playing on the streets, and they're not playing in playgrounds because playgrounds are shutting down. You know, councils can't afford to keep repairing things and whatever. So playgrounds are closing. No one plays on the street because parents are obviously don't like that anymore because it's not seen as safe. I don't know if it actually was safer back in the day, you know, in the 80s when we were all out on the streets playing. They just, you know, I don't think it was any safer, but we're all much more aware of these things. And every time we see a story in the newspapers about isolated incidents, it feels like it might happen on your street. So it's completely understandably, no one's playing on the street. But if no one's playing in the street and no one's playing in the playgrounds, where are they going to play? Maybe at school, but then break times at school have come shorter. I taught at a school that had a half-hour lunch break because when it was 45 minutes, there were fights.
Really?
So their solution wasn't to try and stop the children fighting. Their solution was to just have time to eat. Done. It's horrid. So we've got no play at school. We've got no play in playgrounds. We've got no play on the streets. We've got this no ball games culture that says you can't even hang out in your estate and kick a football about. And do you know what it doesn't solve? The no ball games culture. It doesn't solve antisocial behaviour. No. It doesn't solve shoplifting. It doesn't solve the type of young people, that's a mean thing to say, but it doesn't solve young people terrorising older people like me. It doesn't. No, it doesn't stop that.
It doesn't, because if you're literally like the type of kids who are going to put down some jumpers for goalposts and have a football match, then that's great. You're not hiding in an alleyway vaping or doing whatever else. Do you know what I mean? So it's just so counterintuitive not to let people kick a football.
And we're talking a lot this week about social media for young people. Like, they're not allowed to play, but they are allowed on their phones. So how's that helping?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just bleak and like.
The thing is, though, this is one where I don't think it has to cost an awful lot for an intervention. I know that maintenance of parks, etc., is tricky, but as long as there is a bit of space, or even looking at more play opportunities. I don't know. I know it's so difficult to throw stuff back to schools as well, because they are taking on so much.
So much.
Yeah.
But like I like it. But again, it becomes a thing where deprived young people have less chance to do it. Like I live in a sleepy town by the sea. There's like 6 playgrounds.
Wow.
Right? All open, and there's a few fields they can run around in. And you've got the whole beach.
Yeah.
Access for playing, right? If you live in the areas where I used to teach when I was in London, there's no, like, the play equipment on the estates is broken. There's no ball games rules.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity to learn through play outside of school is taken away. And people they just have their phones, I guess. And they get bored, and fights start, and so it is something that exacerbates the gap between the people who have stuff and the people who don't, and that's the gap, that's the levelling up, that's the opportunity for all that 14 years of Conservative MPs, prime ministers have been saying they want, and now Keir Starmer says he wants. But we're not. We haven't managed to do it, partly because it's really hard. It's really hard. You cannot transform a huge estate in London into Whitstable.
No.
You can't do that. You're never going to give them a whole beach to run around in. There's never going to be fields like we've got here to run around in. So we have to, no ball games culture. We have to work out how we can make it more child-friendly in the areas that are struggling.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right. Will we bring out our fabulous producer, Lottie Smith, who has been waiting in the wings? Because
Lottie! Way! Yay!
I've been loving it. I've been felt like I was on Spotify just listening in.
Oh!
But you were listening in advert free, which isn't on Spotify. It's on Patreon. So do sign up to the Patreon. Oh yeah. Oh
it's so exciting to be here, though.
And you obviously have been up to lots of YouTube filming for the SP YouTube channel, and
yes, we have lots of videos. We've got 2 a week going up there, and 2 shorts. It's been busy, hasn't it, Tatton?
So busy, and it's so much fun to just finding a new way to talk about politics. Like, that's what we do.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's been good. But I'm here to ask the questions from this week. So I've been told, Tatton, to keep it short, or I'll bring out...
no, you do need to keep it short, No, you're right.
But if not, I'll bring out a horn or a buzzer next week, apparently. So that'll be interesting. But
I don't like that. I don't like that.
So question 1, Freddie asks, lots of Labour backbenchers are getting annoyed with government decisions. How likely is that we see a new party form to the left of the current party?
Ooh.
Very likely.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, we've got the 7 Labour Party members who were suspended, and like 2 have gone back. Is it 2?
3, I think. But there's still a few outside for sure. Yeah.
There's a few outside, and Jeremy Corbyn has a group of people on the left already, and the independents haven't joined that yet. But they all sit together in the chamber. You can see them all sitting together. Actually, they sit just behind where Reform sit. So often the looks they give each other are brilliant. They do not agree on much, these fellas. And Reform are all men, aren't they? I think it's only a matter of time. And I think that this decision to cut foreign aid will be another nail. I mean, Diane Abbott, who's still in the Labour Party, she asked a question at PMQs about that. And then John McDonnell stood up and he asked a question about another really important issue about someone who's in prison. I thought he was going to go on foreign aid as well, but he didn't. I think we're going to see more and more people slowly. I mean, Rosie Duffield left Labour, but she's not joining a lefty group. But Freddie, I think it's going to happen.
Wow. Be really interesting. We haven't had, I don't know. I just, that kind of a new party, but a new party with already established quite big figures in it would be interesting.
Well, we had that with Brexit, didn't we? Renew. Was it Renew? No, it wasn't. That's the Billy Piper's ex-husband who's a big
Lawrence,
racist. That fella. I try not to name him because we love Billy Piper. What were they called? Change UK.
Change UK.
Change UK, and they met at Nando's.
Yes.
And they were all big name politicians, none of whom are MPs anymore. But yeah, that was an anti, or they left their party to campaign for Brexit. So that's the last time we had one, I think. There are people in the Labour Party, as you say, Freddie, who get annoyed, as the term you use. They're getting annoyed with government decisions, and that's just true. And they can't remain fragmented individuals in that naughty corner of the opposition benches. They can't do it for long. So I think, going to happen.
Cool.
Thank you. And let's go to question 2. So Charlie asks, Tatton talks about how cuts are coming in his latest TikTok. Where do you think they're going to be and will they affect everyone?
Don't know.
I thought, right, if you've been on TikTok saying cuts are coming, I thought you've got some kind of hotline here to Rachel Reeves and you're like, yes, I'm all over this.
No, my hotline is to look at the data, the economic data, and look at budgets and go, there's no
money.
Like she said, there is no money. She said she's not going to raise taxes, and she said she's not going to borrow, and she needs more money.
Yeah.
The only thing that's left is to cut. Now, I wasn't expecting that cut. For example, we talked to death about foreign aid today. I wasn't expecting it to be foreign aid. And while people are very cross about foreign aid, if it had been the NHS that they cut, or schools that they cut, or prison place, like it would have been more of a problem if they'd cut some of those services that we rely on. Where is she going to get that money from?
Well,
it can't be local. Yeah, Diane. Diane with her hotline to Rachel Reeves. Yes.
Wow. Don't quote me on this, but essentially, we know it's going to be unpopular, but she is going to look at the welfare bill. She's going to have to.
And that's where Kemi Badenoch was talking yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, we've got to cut welfare, and that's going to be hard.
That is going to be some more unhappy backbenchers for Labour.
It is. But we were talking about drawing the line and where you draw the line on things. We're talking about bats in particular, about how many bats are okay to kill. If the government wants to save money on benefits, some people who deserve benefits will lose out. There is no way that they can design a 100% efficient service that catches literally everyone. Now, we've got to hope that people are looked after. Like when I've been in like hospital doing things with bipolar people, with other people with kind of mental health conditions, I met some people who can't work, who were so vulnerable, just living off, disability. God, I hope they're okay. I want them to be okay. And I understand, completely understand we need to save some money, and disability has gone up so massively, and it's projected to go up to like 18 billion pounds in a few years. We need to step in and do something, and I can see that. But they've got to put in a safety net. Like there was a guy like froze to death a few years ago.
Yeah, I do remember that.
In his flat.
Yeah.
And people said it showed how evil the Conservatives are. I don't think it does. I don't think David Cameron would have wanted that. Of course he wouldn't. I don't think he would have accepted that if he was aware. Yes, austerity was to blame, but they didn't want that. They're not evil in that way. It's just impossible to design a system that is not 100% effective. And you have to have a system. You have to have a cutoff. You cannot, unless you have universal basic income, which isn't a particularly popular idea. Unless you have that, some people will miss out. Unless you have everyone having free school meals, some people who are hungry won't get a free school meal.
Yeah.
It is the hardest of all cuts. Because anything you do, any way you draw that line, some people are going to be just the wrong side of it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And the final question. So Just Stuff asks, Ari Mike Amesbury, do you think our politicians should be detached from the person they are outside of their role? And how do we judge them as a person?
So I think because we covered this in the top 3 posts of the week, I think we've said this is not a common occurrence. It's one of those things when you've got 650 people that unfortunately does sometimes happen. And politicians, no, I don't think they should not be themselves. They need to be themselves, But obviously that behaviour is just not acceptable in any way. But it's nice to see politicians doing some of the things that they do and their hobbies and interests outside of their political interests. I think that's not something we need to, discourage necessarily.
No, I mean, if your hobby is punching people when they're down, then get out of here. But you are elected as you as a person, and your name is on there in big letters, and your address normally is on there as well, and people put a cross there. You're elected as you, not as like a professional side and a personal side. It's you. And the reason that's so important is because not everything's in the manifestos. So things can change. The assisted dying bill that's going through at the moment wasn't in the manifesto, wouldn't have been asked about in most hustings, maybe occasionally in hustings around the country, but you've elected someone upon whose values you are riding. You are being represented in Parliament, and their values matter. And values aren't a professional thing; they're in your heart. So that's what we've got to look at, and that's much more important than occasionally some idiot doing terrible things who can. So we shouldn't let Mike Amesbury dictate any debate about what an MP should be. We should expect MPs to have conviction and heart and behave in a way that reflects they are representing 70,000 people.
Cool. Right.
Thank you.
That's our mailbag this week, Lottie.
Yeah, that's all the questions from the listeners. So yeah, hand it over back to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Well, I guess we should probably have our big chat section, Tatton, if that's all right. Will we?
Of course. I mean, it's slightly dull without Lottie.
Yeah, I know.
I got used to
I
that.
know. She can pop back in with a bell. I'll give her a signal.
Yeah, I got to get a buzzer on Amazon this week.
Perfect.
as well.
But shall we chat Keir Starmer? It's a big day for him today.
It is. It's a big day. And by the time you listen to this, unless you're a Patreon subscriber, by the time you listen to this, there will already have been this press conference between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. And so we don't know what's going to be said because literally nobody knows what's going to be said. Keir Starmer will go into that press conference after having hung out with Donald Trump for like 3 hours or however long it is, and he won't know what Donald Trump's going to say.
No. Does Donald Trump know? Probably not.
No?
Probably not. But there's a lot riding on it, isn't there? Because Keir Starmer is looking to kind of be this person. You've talked about this in one of your videos, actually, but he's looking to be this bridge between America, Trump, and Europe. Because Trump went and did his thing and talked to Russia without really including Europe. And that sort of raised a few eyebrows. And so Starmer's in quite a unique and good position as the UK to go and chat to Trump, really. Because
I think
he seems to still have this big kind of respect for the UK, right? Sort of.
I mean, the UK, we've spoken before about the UK being this kind of deluxe version of Europe, with our Bentleys and our Rolls Royces and our whatever and our king, like all of that, and the Commonwealth, head of the Commonwealth. Like we've still got a little bit of panache on the world stage, but also Keir Starmer is a serious man.
He is. Yes.
The Director of Public Prosecutions. Before that, sorting out justice in Northern Ireland. Right? That's not an easy place. Look at Diane. She's a nightmare. It's not an easy place to have done that. He has negotiated things. He has put things in place that have been really impressive. So he goes over to America as this guy and also as the head of state for our country. And we've just got to hope that's enough because you don't know.
We don't know. We don't. He's been quite sort of I'm trying to think of the word, but he's not been afraid, Keir Starmer, to make some bold statements. So he was the first to say, for example, to talk about this idea of using peacekeeping troops. He's definitely been at the forefront of some ideas and thoughts around potential peace in Ukraine and a path to peace, which has been interesting to see him do that. Real leadership on a global stage. But I think we have seen that.
Is it really leadership when he before he goes out to the meeting changes our entire spending policy on defence and foreign aid, coincidentally a day before he travels to America? Like, that's following. That's not leading. So what I want to see from him tonight, or you might have seen it from him this morning when you wake up before you listen to this podcast, what I want to see from him is that leadership, is that strength, rather than, Donald Trump grabs Theresa May's hand without her consent. That kind of I'm gonna do what I want attitude, and we need to be careful of that.
Yeah, it's tricky, but they might not just talk defence, right? Because there's tariffs still hanging around. The idea of tariffs, trade, but I guess it's all on a fine balance, isn't it? Depends if one thing goes well, then we might get some movement on the others. But like we say, we just can't predict.
He's all about the deal.
Yeah.
Trump is all about the deal. His book, The Art of the Deal, of course, but everything is about, quid pro quo. Give me a bit of this, I'll give you a bit of that, and all this, and how can we get this Ukraine
minerals?
Where he's getting the minerals, he wants to get something out of everything. He's but one thing about him that was almost kind of admirable is that he's really clear about that. Nobody can possibly listen to him and go, "Oh, well, you don't mean it." He is going to get something out of it. When we've gone into Iraq, people were saying things talking about oil. No one ever said we're doing it for the oil. But Trump, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing it for the minerals. I'm here for that."
Yeah.
He's saying the quiet bit out loud.
Yeah.
And
with the inner monologue.
Oh yeah, I'll have that.
Yeah.
We don't know. We'll see what happens.
Okay, interesting. Right. Wow. We are pretty much out of time. What I've got something that's going to happen next week that I know.
Oh God. Okay.
Your favorite. It's Pancake Day. That's on Tuesday.
What are you going to go for?
Lemon sugar. I'm very traditionally a French crepe girl with lemon and sugar. Lottie, Lottie, what about you? Come back in, tell us. Amazing.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah.
That's amazing. But I'll give you one serious one as well. So we will also be listening to a debate in the Commons. That'll be on Thursday for International Women's Day, which is actually on Saturday, but the Commons are doing it on Thursday to get that in, and that's always really, really worth a listen.
Yeah.
What about you? What's going on for you, Tatton?
Do you know what? I'm not even sure what's happening next week, but I know that there's going to be more fallout because the Prime Minister will come back to the Commons on Monday and feedback. Whenever he goes to a big meeting, he comes and tells what's going on in the Commons. So we'll have Prime Minister on Monday. We're going to be starting to build up towards the spring statement, which is where we might see cuts. Mm-hmm. We're not going to see tax rises because she said she won't do that. She keeps saying these things that then mean she can't do these things. I don't know why. It doesn't seem to me, but that's her jam. So we're going to see maybe cuts, building up to that. More in Ukraine, of course. Zelensky's in tomorrow, so we're going to see the tail end of this week. Next week, and we're going to see the beginning of a few weeks' time next week.
That's confusing, but great. No, I do know what you mean.
Thanks, Diane.
But right, I'm going to end. I've never ended the podcast, so I'm not sure how to, but I'll just.
You just say goodbye, Diane. You just say goodbye. It's not rocket science.
I feel like I should leave with a witty remark, but I don't have one. So I'll just say thank you for listening. Tell your friends. Thanks, Lottie. Thanks, Tatton, and we'll see you all next time.
See you next time. Bye.